welcome to our third podcast on The Conversation. Today's subject is COVID and food safety consulting, disaster or opportunity. My name is James Flynn, I'm the CTO of Priority, and we specialise in digitising food safety management systems all the way down the supply chain. I'll now ask Andy to introduce himself.
Hey, I'm Andy Kerridge. I'm the owner and director of Wyvern Food Solutions, which is a food safety consultancy based in the UK. My customers include everything from blue chip global companies down to startups. Different challenges, different needs. Over to you, Jennifer.
My name is Jennifer Crandall. I am the owner and founder of Safe Food en Route, also a consulting company specializing in food safety and foreign supplier verification program rule. We're based in the US and also help small and medium-sized companies with their programs.
Thanks, Jennifer. So today's topic was really brought about because all three of us have been or are independent consultants at one time or another in our careers. And we realized that one of the big challenges through COVID, through social distancing and travel restrictions and so on, means that many consultants can't go to site to carry out audits, for example. They can't go to site to work on projects. They're resorting to using things like this, like Zoom or video conferencing solutions to try and still get work done. But nonetheless, it's likely that there are a lot of consultants out there whose work is drying up because their clients are now holding on to their cash because things are very uncertain with the economy and so on. So even though the food sector is seeing a lot of change, but it's still essential, there are definitely changes in demand, and there are going to be winners and losers through this crisis, and there are going to be businesses without a doubt that will go bust. And this all affects the supply chain, which includes independent consultants. So Andy, you are an independent consultant. You do a lot of auditing work. This must have had a major effect on how you're now doing business at this point in time. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about how this has affected you and where you see that going.
Okay, yeah. As you said, I do auditing and I do travel a fair bit. The basis for my business is not to have one or two major clients, but to spread the load for financial reasons as much as anything else around. So I typically have 10 or a dozen clients. What I've seen, not surprisingly, is a complete dry up of any travel. So my auditing schedule, which includes most of Western Europe, is not happening. What I have been able to do is carry on the work that I already do online, which currently occupies about 2.5, 3 days a week. What I also have seen a growth of are short telephone conversations and consultancy. I'm charging for them, not for the 5-minute ones, but anything much longer than a quarter of an hour gets totted up, and I do some of those. So I think there's an opportunity there in terms of like phone a friend or whatever, phone an expert service that factories which are facing tough questions in the situation they're in now could have a bank of consultants that they could say, right, let's get a view of 2 or 3 of these guys on how to solve this situation. But the remote working, I mean, what I'm doing for one client is basically, I could be anywhere in the world to do that, much as you are, James, at the moment. It's a digitized system that I'm working on, and the other people I'm working with are based in Russia and Turkey and so on. Mm-hmm. So so I think we will get through this. It will see, hopefully, it will kickstart and kick people into action in terms of more digitized opportunities for their record keeping and systems. We will see. I've got some remote audits set up with one client where I'm not quite sure what format they're going to take at the moment, whether it's a desktop audit of paperwork, or whether it's actually going to involve some moving around the site with cameras and so forth. You know, there'll be more of those.
Right. Okay. And you know, in terms of the wider outlook on this, do you see this as a disaster for food safety consultants, independent food safety consultants? I mean, not only those guys, but I'm sure the bigger consultancy firms might be struggling too.
Yes.
Or do you see an opportunity here to kind of change the game a bit?
It depends. I mean, it depends on the clients and it depends on the consultant as to their flexibility and openness. It's very difficult to do things remotely if you're working with a paper-based system. It can be done, but it's pretty heavy lifting in terms of sharing information and so forth. And some consultants maybe are uncomfortable with making that shift. But I think for those that are working from home and have the right technology or the right attitude to the technology, and for clients who are seeing this also as a fundamental shift in the way of doing business, this could be an opportunity.
Right. Okay. Excellent. And Jennifer, that's the kind of story from, let's just say, a UK food safety consultant. On the US side, what are you seeing and hearing there about the issues that food safety consultants are facing in a similar but yet different ecosystem?
Yeah, it's very similar in the sense of what Andy described. Many of the team that I work with and anyone else that I'm talking to that are consultants, if they were traveling and doing audits, they have stopped. For the ones that I work with regularly, I've built my business around digitized data and doing most of the work remotely. So it's really not affected us per se, except for, I would say the biggest thing is my clients are quiet, most of them, because they're in the food industry, they're in the essential category, so they're super busy and they're not able to communicate with us on things that we need to get out of them. So that's been one of the challenges that we had that in the past. I mean, there's a lot of busy people out there, and when you're working with small and medium-sized companies, they tend to be just wearing many hats, the people that you're talking to. So sometimes they're not able to communicate as often as you'd like, but it seems like that's been a little bit harder to overcome. The teams that I'm working with, the subcontractors, they are all kind of saying the same thing. So if they are been traveling and doing audits, I don't know what to do. The ones that are doing training, they are trying to shift and learn how to do training online. Some have already done some training online, so they're a little bit more familiar in that space, but others are looking for that as possibly an opportunity to dive into. But again, if you can't talk to your small and medium-sized companies, they may not be able to give you the amount of time for training, especially in the midst of trying to produce the backup supply that we need to fill the pipes again, because we've, depleted 300, 400 times the amount of food that we normally do in the last 3 to 4 weeks. So, it's a balance. So I'm curious to see how it progresses in the next several weeks as we kind of normalize things.
Yeah, okay. So I think that for me, that brings up a couple of questions. One of them is, and I think Andy alluded to some of the potential outcomes here, but the first one is, how do you stimulate the market to see value in effectively a remote consultant? And related to that, how I think what we're definitely seeing from the COVID virus is that there is a lot more use of technology to do the communication rather than traveling, for example, because of the measures. So do you think that this virus is going to have a significant effect on the future of food safety consulting? And I'll come to you first on that one, Andy.
Well, the short answer is yes. And I think yes for a number of reasons. I think people are seeing what they can do remotely. and that is, they don't need to pay, people to travel. They can get a quick 10-15 minute conversation, or they can do a full gap analysis and send it over digitally for the consultant to look at. Now, I don't think it stops site visits. I think that we're a long way from that, and seeing the whites of the eyes and talking to staff and all that sort of stuff that are an essential part of an audit. But there are things that can be done, maybe take the load off the day, or change the format of an audit completely so that you do more of it remotely. And also, it doesn't have to be nailed down to 1 or 2 days a year. It could be an ongoing check on the status of certain parts of the operation and so forth. And this also would imply for large companies with multiple sites and their own internal audit teams going between those sites. They're restricted as much as we are, and they'll be looking at, with this technology. I think what I'm not seeing at the moment is this new technology being talked about, other than within fora like this. And I think there's an opportunity to start publicizing the opportunities out there. And people will get, the people that are not so busy, in some cases shut down, maybe looking at this opportunity to look at where they're going to be going if they are able to restart. And those that are too busy, once we've restocked that 300, 400%, and they get that back to some normal level of production, we'll be looking at, what can we make out of this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things I've observed over decades is that, the food industry has typically been slow to adopt the use of technology. And my own feeling is that I think and I hope that they will now start to see the benefits of using technology through this crisis, and then continue to use that technology going forward, because it's simply more efficient, it's more effective, it's available anywhere, and so on. We need to get out of the silo mentality of, all of your files need to be on that computer in your work, and if you can't be there, then you can't get anything done. But I'm going to come to the second part, or the first part rather, of my last question. Come to Jennifer. Could you add to some of the thoughts about how a consultant that's sitting there wondering where their next paycheck is going to come from can actually stimulate the market by going to their customers and offering them services, and what kind of services can they offer? Andy mentioned, consultant at the end of the phone, like a COVID hotline type of thing. But this is not obviously just not about COVID, because all the other problems in a food operation don't go away just because of COVID. So the need is still there for those factories that are still operating, and most of them are still operating. So what measures, as an innovative lady in the United States there, what measures would you take or advise consultants to take in order to stimulate things, to shake up their customers, to get them to wake up to the fact that they're still there and can add value?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it, taking the opportunities to look at what your specific clients are needing and they're missing. So if you're currently working with them and they're missing, like say they're bringing in a lot of people, we were talking before the call that, there's individuals that may be getting sick in the factories and from COVID, and they're no longer in the factory. So do they need somebody to take over training for them, where you could arrange a Zoom call, do quick training on GMP and HACCP, and you can do that remotely. You don't have to be there. And, they could do that so that the other people, the management could stay in their offices or going out on the floor and making sure that production is running smoothly. So there's opportunities for quick training, quick paperwork management. So if you need your PCQI and you have your PCQI is too wrapped up doing things, then maybe the consultant who is also trained PCQI could step in and do some of that sign off on the documentation for you, so that you could stay there and they could keep doing remote work for them. And also, Andy mentioned gap audits. And that is a route that I'm taking, is offering a lot of remote gap audits. That was something I was doing already, doing gap audits on paperwork and on programs, because there's still a lot of companies that are looking for trying to transition from, like regular GMP audits into a GFSI scheme. So if you have that training on any of the GFSI schemes, you could do a gap audit on their programs, have them provide it, use a software tool, similar to 3i Verify, to be able to, send a quick questionnaire and say, send me all your documents, so that I could review them for you, and I could look at the gaps in that to see if there's any, things that we could assist you with on that. And then that might be able to develop into more work in the future for you, as well as, that way you're not in person, but you're remotely doing a lot of technical writing where you might not have been doing that before. So those are 3 ideas that I had just sitting and listening to what Andy was saying. And I'm of course doing exactly that, looking for every opportunity I can with my clients to keep them running smoothly and transition things. So I'm also there for them. So like, I'm just making myself available. Like, if you need anything, just let me know. If there's anything that, pops up in your mind that you're like, I think, Jennifer could help me with this, or Jennifer's team could help me with this, then they could, make yourself available as a consultant to your clients, so that the people are constantly thinking of you. The biggest thing is in this, I believe, is communication. So, don't let them forget about you. I've been, and I don't know if this is plagiarizing McDonald's, but I've heard this in sales training plenty of times, to be like McDonald's, where they're constantly doing commercials and reminding people that they're there. You don't want to be a nuisance, obviously, but making sure that they know that you are there for them, because the first place that anyone in the United States, we kind of joke about it, the first place we think of when we're thinking of a hamburger is McDonald's. Even if we want a fast food burger, it's not that that's our favorite burger. That's not necessary. It's because McDonald's is in our face all the time. Who do you think of whenever you want a cup of coffee? All globally, everybody thinks of Starbucks now, because Starbucks is everywhere. Yep. So it's kind of, taking the opportunity to make sure that you are doing self-promotion. This is not the time to be shy, because if you're shy and not self-promoting, nobody knows you're there. You're not going to get any money. You're not going to get any income during this, which is kind of the scary part of the whole situation, is that as your work dries up, so does your money.
Yeah, no, I love that. This is not the time to be shy. It is, in fact, I think, the time to be bold in a lot of ways. But I know both of you and myself from time to time, we do quite a lot on LinkedIn, for example, to get information out there. In fact, this podcast will be posted on LinkedIn on all of our profiles, and it gets the word out about these discussions and so on. So an independent single person consultant, they don't have the marketing budget of McDonald's or Starbucks. They don't have that kind of reach. But one thing I could definitely say that you could do right now, while you've got some downtime, is work on LinkedIn, for example. Mm-hmm. Firstly, my top tips, and we'll come to both of you guys next, my top tips would be, first, the most important thing is get your profile right. Make sure you are using the right language, keywords, and so on in there. You can upload presentations and videos and so on about the kind of work that you've done into your profile, and then get involved in some of the groups. So if you've not got time and this is not playtime when we're coming to this. What it's doing is, every time you post a response to maybe a food safety question in a particular group or something, people are going to read that, and they're going to then look at your profile, and they're going to go, wow, this guy or this lady could help me solve a problem. So in your profile, you need to be very explicit about the kind of problems you're very good at solving, so you can get the message out there and be in front of them, like McDonald's or Starbucks, in some sort of small way. But I'll come to you in a moment, Andy. I just want to go to Jennifer on this LinkedIn thing, because I know that Jennifer is very good and very a lot more, let's say, consistent than I am about LinkedIn. But tell the viewers and listeners a little bit about your LinkedIn strategy that might give them some inspiration and some ideas about connecting with new customers.
Yeah, the biggest thing is understanding the way LinkedIn works. And it's similar to some of the other social media platforms like Facebook, where they have an algorithm built into the way the viewers see things. So understanding that, basically it means be active all the time, because if you're not active, people don't know that you're there, and they may not see you. So there's a couple of ways that I've done. I try to have a business page, one, and I have my personal page. I use a free service called Hootsuite, and I actually have all my platforms linked to it. So I have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn hooked to that on my business pages. And then LinkedIn, I'm able to also link my personal profile to it, so I can actually update 5 things at the same time. I try to be on that platform at least twice a week, if not more. LinkedIn, I'm on every single day. I'm checking every single day, my notifications. The other thing is broadening your reach. So you need to constantly be networking, and not just networking by talking to people. I do agree with James that the groups are a great place to be and to explore, but go send connection requests to all those people, because the more that you're connecting, the more people will see you, the more chances. But I know James does this very well, because I do see some of my connections touting that they have, 30,000 connections. That's great. Are your 30,000 connections really related to where you want to be working, or are they just anyone? Because I get requests all the time because of how active I am. My LinkedIn profile shows up on a lot of people's suggested lists. And when they start requesting, I get a lot of requests from investors. Wonderful. I love the idea of getting investment, but I don't have time for you. Like we can have that conversation offline. I get a lot of requests from people that are, that have they have similar interests to me, but we don't totally align on where we would want to promote together. So if they're wanting to dig in for information, sometimes they'll be a time waster. And it's nothing against what they're trying to do. They're also trying to network, but it's kind of like when somebody's trying to sell me a piece of equipment at a level of a facility that I don't typically do consulting around. I don't want to put that person in my network. What I would rather do is put a QA manager in my network, or a food safety person. So I try to be really strategic who I allow into my network, and then I try to communicate with them. The number one rule, though, I will say, is do not, because so many people make this mistake, do not get salesy. Do not go and as soon as you get a connection with someone, go in and immediately email them or private message them a note and like, hi, thank you so much for connecting. I just want to let you know about my services. That's overload. You don't want to do that. Instead, just let them get to know you through LinkedIn a little bit. If they went and looked at your profile, then, and your profile's up to date, to James' point, if it's up to date, then there's a good chance that they understand who they connected with. They know you're a consultant. They know you're there. They're interested in your content. They want to see what you're providing out there. They want to see if they even want to talk to you further than just being connected. So give them a reason, but give them the reason through your content sharing. So like James mentioned, the presentations and sharing articles, sharing meaningful things that are related to the current circumstances or to things, the ways that you see you might be able to help. And one other thing, and then I'll let you switch back, that I do is I constantly blog on my website. And then I share that content, and that blogging is showing my knowledge and it's showing what my team's capabilities are. But at the same time, it's giving enough information away that for free, it's giving that information away so that people can get a little bit out of it. So I don't just send out like that constant sales material. It's more like, here's 10 things that you can use right now. My latest blog was about how to navigate switching to remote. From manufacturing to some of the people going home and doing remote work and how they could possibly do that, things that they can do at home. So that's free. I'm not going, I don't need to have people call me for that, but it does drive them to my website. It does drive them to me eventually if they need me. So that's.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of your points are absolutely spot on there. For me, the use of LinkedIn has to be about relevancy. So in my connection pool, there are very, very few people in there that are not either people I've worked with in the past, or who are not related to the food industry. So nearly everyone in my network is a food safety consultant, a technical manager, quality manager, someone who's to do with the software business regarding food safety, and so on. So, and then the other point then is the content that you post. Yes, it can have some kind of personal stuff that's offbeat from your theme, because you need to show your personality and what you believe in and what your values are as well. But you should try and share relevant content to your audience, in this case, your network. Now, Andy, I know that you you use LinkedIn a little bit differently. I would say more in a kind of matchmaking way in terms of finding the right people for jobs and so on. I wonder if you could perhaps tell us a little bit, without giving too much away, obviously, about your business model, but tell us a little bit about, how you find that approach useful.
Oh, I mean, it's excellent. It's I have one or two clients who use me as much for my connections, and obviously, my first choice of people to do work will be people I am closely connected with through history or company relationships. But LinkedIn is also set up to have searches based on competency, on that people who've worked in certain companies will have certain expertise in supplying certain customers and some things like that. So for one client, I've found people ranging from engineers to cost accountants to chocolate experts to, it's a multifunctional facility that I've been doing the work for. But over the years, that's proved to be quite rewarding for me, because it's nice to be able to give work to other consultants. And there's also a financial aspect of it for me, because I get a split of their first salary or whatever it is. So, and LinkedIn is brilliant for that. You have the opportunity to send messages to people that you're not necessarily connected with. It's been brilliant.
Brilliant. Okay. So the last point I want to make on LinkedIn before we move on is that there is a tool that I've used in the past called Dux Soup. That's D-U-X and then Soup, S-O-U-P. And it's an automation tool. You can do a lot with it, including sending connection requests, which I have used in the past. But when I'm using that, I don't normally use it for that type of approach. So one of the things which I find that very effective for is finding the audience that you want to connect with and using it to automatically go and view the profile of those people. And so what happens then is inevitably some percentage of those people will see that you've viewed their profile, and they will then view your profile. And so you've got a bit of a two-way thing that goes on there. And then, you can, at least you've got some sort of reason to reach out and perhaps connect with those people because they showed interest. But like Jennifer said, never ever go, these are my services. What I typically do is, thanks for connecting. When they do connect, thanks for connecting. If you need any, if I can help you with anything, just please let me know, and leave it at that, And then the benefit of then being connected to that person is that you're going to show up when you post content. And this, coming back to Jennifer's point earlier about McDonald's and Starbucks, how did they get there? They got there by being front of mind constantly over a long period of time to attract those customers in. And that's what you need to do, is you need to be visible, but not over the top, but visible so that they're seeing you on a regular basis, and then they go, oh yeah, that's the guy that does that, or that's the lady that does that, or whatever. And it just starts building up your credibility in their mind as a trusted expert on there. So
I think before you switch real quick, I think it might be useful for the people that are listening and viewing to understand that that's actually the way James and I met. So I joined a group that just happened to be like a nonprofit type group talking about the blockchain, and James was running that group, and then we connected. So that's been a couple of years ago that we connected, and have developed a very good relationship since. And you know, that was the foundation of it, was the networking that we both did on LinkedIn and seeing the visibility of each other's posts.
Yeah, and we actually together planned and executed a not a person, but an event in New Jersey using nothing but LinkedIn. And we had about 50, 60 people come to that event, and they were all reached out to using a combination of the Duck Soup software, a follow-up message to say, you know, we're running this event. I hope you can connect with me and I'll send you more details. So you're offering something that is going to be A, relevant to them, and B, that they can get value out of, and you know, it's a free event. So that was pre-COVID, but post or during COVID here, the opportunity is around things like webinars and so on. So if you've got something you're really, really hot on that you are better at than, you know, all of your competitors, then run a webinar. Get a Zoom subscription, send the connection requests out to relevant people to say, hey, I'm running this webinar. I'd like to invite you along. Please connect with me and I'll send you details. And the act of those people connecting with you is tacit permission to send them details. So if they don't connect with you, then you've not lost anything. But it has to be relevant to them. Don't send them information that is just not going to be in their sphere of interest, because you know, you'll get a lot of you know, I don't know this person reports in LinkedIn, which could damage your LinkedIn profile and so on. So that's, I think LinkedIn for me represents one of the easiest opportunities. It's not easy. It requires consistency. It requires a strategy. You need to work on it, and you need to do that on a regular basis, but you can't let it take over your life either. So it's a good idea to do 15, 20 minutes a day, write a blog once every couple of weeks, post that, get that out there, comment on activity that's relevant to you. Even just liking an article that's relevant to you means that you'll get notifications, you'll see who else is commenting, and so on. So these are great online strategies that you can use to, you know, increase your visibility, increase your reach, and drive opportunity and people to your website and so on. So just some ideas that we've found successful in the past. So coming back to the main theme of what we're talking about in terms of is COVID-19 a disaster or an opportunity? I think quite clearly it's a disaster in you know, in human health and economy and so on. But ultimately, those that adapt to the changes that are happening are the ones who will prosper. Well, firstly, who will survive the immediate crisis, and then also prosper after the crisis is over, as it will be at some point. So coming to you, Andy, in terms of because I think we need to be positive here as well. We have to have a positive outlook. So what do you see as the top 3 opportunities for consultants going forward from where we're at today?
Okay, I think you're right in terms of technology. I think there's an element there where things are changing, whether it be digitization or whether it be remote viewing opportunities. I think we talked on the previous episode of the conversation about glass-based technologies for remote viewing, operating, training, and so forth. So I think there's opportunities there. I think there's a real opportunity to promote this phone an expert, and so there are some companies that do it, and I've taken part in things for you know, where investors are interested in a particular field, and they'll bring a pool of experts to get you know, try and take the temperature of that particular market. But I think there's, you know, that could so equally apply to food companies who want to do something or have got a problem. Phone 4 different experts from different, fields or whatever. What's their view? What do they see as, possible blocks to doing this? What are the hitches and so forth? So I think there's, whether it be a 30-minute or a 40-minute consultation, I think there's a real area there that would carry on beyond the COVID-19. And then in terms of what else, I think there's an element there of a change, and I referred to it earlier about hopefully a change of mindset about what an audit actually is. And this thing about, people getting on a plane, train, etc., just to go to see something at the factory when it could so easily, a large part of that could be done remotely now.
Okay, excellent. Same question to you, Jennifer. What do you see as the top 3 opportunities, specifically if you can tailor your answer towards the US market in particular?
Well, I think one thing that since a lot of people are experiencing, especially the ones that are doing auditing, it might be a good time to reevaluate your business and look at what opportunities you do have. So, where are your strengths, where are your weaknesses with your clients? So that'd be one just in general that I would say is a good opportunity to do now, because yeah, you're looking for income fast. But at the same time, this is, we're getting blessed with some downtime. Some people, I wouldn't say I am, but there's a lot of people that are getting blessed with some downtime that it might be a great opportunity to just reevaluate. The others, I would say, explore, I do like the idea of phoning an expert, but I think explore too the gap audits and that you could do remotely through digital data, receiving digital data and reviewing it that way. And then exploring training opportunities where you could do, an hour call, or possibly if you're a HACCP or a PCQI, a lead trainer, or one of the audit schemes that you could keep promoting that. So there's got to be ways to do it. And my team's searching for them just as much as everyone else, but I think that's a good opportunity, because once this settles down, there's going to be a lot of things that we can do remotely and via video conference that is going to drive prices down for some of the, especially with training. I think it's going to drive prices down because the travel expense will be reduced. And so you can't be competitive if you want to go on site. Yes, there are reasons you want to go on site to do training, but doing it in a Zoom call where you can still see everybody and still monitor everybody as for requirements for some of the lead trainers, I think that, Zoom is a great opportunity. Zoom's making a ton of money out of this, so you might as well just give them some more. Other than that, I would say reach out to your clients. Again, I'm just kind of saying the same thing I said before, but reach out to your former clients and see how you can be available and how you can help them, and just let them know you're there for them.
Yeah, I would take that a step further. One of the things that that I learned in our entrepreneurial spark incubator 3-4 years ago was this whole idea about customer discovery and then validation and then pivoting, right? So I don't know if you're nodding your head, Jennifer. You're obviously aware of this type of approach. So customer discovery is all about trying to understand what problems your customer is having that you might be able to help with. So, and you can apply that to technology as well. So having conversations with your former customers and so on, people who know you already, is also a very valuable way to just touch base, find out what their challenges are, and have a think about how, not necessarily try and sell them something on that call, but have a think about how that feeds into your business strategy, because everyone needs to have at least some kind of plan, even if it's a very basic one-page business plan, which is another thing which we really learned a lot about during our entrepreneurial spark days. So you don't need to have a 20-page business plan, but you've got a vision. Your vision is to be the best consultant in whatever. That vision leads to a strategy, and that strategy leads to a plan. And part of that plan has to be looking at what customer problems are and then validating that the solution that you've got for those problems is effective. So in this way, it's very similar to food safety and HACCP and so on. It's what's the problem? How do I solve that problem? How do I control that problem? And then checking that your model is effective, and therefore you are earning income and providing a great service to your customer. So that customer discovery and a validation process is important. And where you can't validate the activity that you're doing, offering a new service, offering a phone service, for example, then what you need to do is you need to pivot. You need to change direction. Now, that doesn't mean dropping the idea completely. Sometimes just a small tweak to your idea or your concept is all it needs to make the whole thing fly. So there are plenty of resources out there on this online, the customer discovery process, that please do have a look at those and formulate a strategy for now, the short term, during the next few months, and then keep your ear to the ground about what is happening in terms of regulation, GFSI standards, the way the industry is operating, uptake of technology, and make sure that you're well positioned to be able to pick up on those themes that are happening in industry, because there's a lot of change at the moment, a lot of uncertainty, but getting through that phase and adapting to it is going to be critical going forward. So yeah. We're just going to give you a minute each to wrap up, and then we'll call it a day for this session today. So over to you, Jennifer. I can see you're champing at the bit there.
Well, I just had one other thought that I wanted to add to it is, and it's a trend I'm seeing with a few of my connections that are consultants. They are expanding their certifications. So if you do have downtime and it's not affecting you too much and you're not in this worrisome state, a positive thing to possibly do is take some new training. So a lot of them are getting certified on new, like the intentional adulteration rule or some of the other FSMA rules, but they're also doing some GFSI training as well. So I think that that's a really smart way to pivot. To James' point, that I like that idea of pivot. Everybody might think of Friends whenever they think of that. There's a really famous quote there. But just being adaptable, because it is, no matter what, this is going to change. We are going to change as a food industry. We are learning things by the minute of how we can do things differently because we're in crisis mode. And this is not just a crisis in one region or in one facility. This is every single manufacturing facility globally that is being affected by this. So it is going to force a change that we need to be ready to adapt to. So I like that idea. I want to stay relevant in this new market that we're heading into. So I encourage everybody else to do that too.
Yeah, you're right. Necessity is the mother of invention is a very famous saying. I can't remember who said that. Maybe Andy will be able to tell us, but it's...
I thought you were going to credit it to me, but... your invention is the mother of necessity. Okay, so over to you, Andy, to give us your final thoughts before we wrap up. Well, we sort of touched on it via LinkedIn, but there's nothing wrong with picking up the phone either, and keeping in touch with people. And it doesn't have to be those connections on LinkedIn, etc. But we've all, over our years of working in businesses and whatever, built up a network of contacts, and just drop people a line. There are others in the same situation as us. It doesn't hurt just to remind them you exist and see how they're going as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, coming back to the LinkedIn strategy, we hadn't planned on talking about LinkedIn at all, but it is such a no-brainer because it gives you access to the market. But one of the things that I often use in the LinkedIn strategy, if there is someone who is out there that I really want to connect with and who looks interesting, either as a collaborator, a partner, or a customer or client. And in fact, this is exactly how Jennifer and I, got together 2-3 years ago there. One of the things I'll do is I'll reach out to them and maybe after the connection or during the connection and say, hey, I'm really interested in your business or what you do. I'd like to pick your brains about some aspects of that and learn a bit more about your organization and your technology or your company or whatever it is. And people appreciate that. You know, if someone's interested in my business, as you can tell, I enjoy talking about that, and you know, I'm passionate about that. People tend to be passionate about what they do. So if you can get a conversation going where it's not all about you, it's about them as well, then naturally they're going to be interested in what you do. And so these are just additional techniques that you can use, which start any networking relationship off on a good footing, because it's all about that's great, you know, this is what I do, but you know, what do you do, and how can, you know, can we work together, or is it just good to know someone in that field so that later someone like you, Andy, can do some matchmaking or something like that. But yeah, picking up the phone is you know, it's an old-fashioned one, but it's still a goodie, as they say. So with that, I hope this podcast has been of use and maybe helped give some inspiration to consultants out there who are perhaps worried about, you know, what the future holds here. There is opportunity out there, and you know, we're all proponents of networking and getting together and working together. You don't need to work for the same company to collaborate on projects, for example. So it's goodbye from me.
And from me.
And me. Thank you.
And we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
All right.